Let's talk some more about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Memphis series. And I think one thing that OKC has been missing is production, consistent production from their bigs. You were just talking about Serge Ibaka. It is neat to see how he has developed. He's evolved as a player. He's stroking it from 15 to 17 feet. But Kendrick Perkins has been a non-factor, and that is huge. You've got to have some production from your five-man.
The thing is, this isn't a surprise. Kendrick Perkins is a factor on the defensive end. He's the tough guy. He's the one that he's had an immeasurable impact on Kevin Durant. I mean, if you talk to Kevin about Kendrick Perkins' impact, and he will tell you no one has had a bigger impact on him.
How so?
In terms of how he looks at the game, they study tape together. They look before the game. You'll see them in the locker room, and Kevin just follows Kendrick around, and he's getting advice, he's getting tips, he's getting, so Kendrick has had a profound impact on Kevin Durant. But where he doesn't have a profound impact is on the offensive end. And they had a couple of deals that perhaps could have been made, one of which was Marcin Gortat, Phoenix Suns center, who is quite a capable offensive player. And of course he got hurt, so that kind of becomes a moot point. But so if they traded him, it creates another way that the team can beat you. And right now the problem the Thunder have is Kevin's going to give you 30 to 35 points. You can count on that. But you need about 85 to 90 to win a game if you play very good defense. And where the rest of those points are going to come from has been their challenge, and it's why they're down in the series. What
are your thoughts about Kevin Durant? I mean, everybody talks about his scoring, his ability, but I think he's done an amazing job in terms of his ability to extract defenders and make that pass.
It's basketball IQ. Kevin is not just a scorer. Carmelo Anthony for years has been a great scorer, but until this year, he was not a great player. Yes, put points on the board, but your team doesn't get very far. Whereas Kevin has learned spacing, he's learned passing, he's learned that it's when to defer and when to put the team on his back. And he's playing great defense this year, which up till this point, that was his big thing last summer, was he wanted to be a very good defender, and he's added a lot of defense to his game. So, with Kevin, you've got a cerebral guy who wants to be, every year he wants to be measurably better at some part of the game, or at every part of the game. And when you have a superstar that has no ego whatsoever and wants to work just as hard as everybody else, you have what Greg Popovich has had in Tim Duncan. There's no ego. He never questions. Whatever the coach says goes, and he's going to give 110% on the court and in the locker room and practice. There's no, like, I'm too good to practice mentality, even from Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward of all time. Kevin Durant, one of the great small forwards, certainly one of the best players in the league today, has the same mentality. It's not going to change. It's been long enough. We know he's not going to change. And that just spells great things for the Thunder. They just need to put, they're a piece or two away again now.
You're absolutely right. I've had a chance to spend time around Key, just a wonderful young man and a great role model for our youth. And he really is a student of the game. He's always trying to take his game to the next level. Now, the other team we got to talk about in the series, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls, Miami Heat. Of course, it seems like this series is completely over, but it has been very, very physical. And all I can say in Miami terms is that Joakim Noah and LeBron James, they're not going to be having a play date anytime soon and hanging out in the offseason. I mean, wow, it has really been something else, hasn't it?
Well, it has, and you have to first say what an amazing playoff run it's been for Chicago.
Oh, it's true.
Because
missing so many players.
No Derrick Rose, and then as you had no Joakim Noah to start the series, and just the further they go, the more you lose Kirk Heinrich, you lose Lou Aldang, and neither of those guys are going to be back, and then you think they're just toast. And yet they did get a game in Miami right at the beginning, and the next game they got blown out. Then it was a very competitive game. They have held their own, and the fact that they eliminated the Brooklyn Nets, who had sky-high expectations, this has been a great year for Chicago. But my thing is, the thing that's kind of been the overshadowing of the Bulls has been the Derrick Rose question. Every day, where is Derrick Rose? Why isn't Derrick Rose playing? What's wrong with Derrick? He can't play through pain? That's not it. I talked to a friend of mine who works with their PR department, and I just said, what's going on? He's been cleared to play since February. He's practicing full speed. Why is he not playing? And he said, well, none of us really know, except that he's worried that he will go back out on the court and it'll happen again, because he's had 2 major injuries, missed a lot of time, and he's worried about that. So what he wants to, it seems, what he wants to do is go the entire year and the entire summer and come back ready to go in the fall for next season. So my thing is this. Why don't you just say that? I mean, that's how you end all of this. There's no Twitter. Somebody on Twitter said this, and then there's a headline about that, and is he going to play game 3, and is he going to play game 4? All of that ends. And the fans who are so frustrated, and he's become the butt of jokes. Like, people are making fun of Derrick Rose because he's weak now, and he can't play through this and can't. All of that ends if he comes out in February when he returns to practice and says, look, I want to make sure that when I return, I'm 100%. And to that end, I'm not going to play the rest of this season, even though I feel good. I'm getting my motion, my mobility back. I'm feeling confident in the knee, the leg, everything. But to be sure, I'm going to wait and come back next year. In the meantime, I'm going to be at the end of the bench, rooting my team on, in street clothes, but I'm not going to play. And then guess what? It's not a story. That's it. Then the story is the Bulls. But instead, every day, is Derek going to play then? Well, what does it take to get Derrick Rose? Why isn't he playing? He's letting his team down. He could have set all that aside, but he hasn't done that. And as a result, what do we hear every day? Is Derrick Rose going to play? Why isn't he playing? He's hurt. He's letting his team down. He's afraid to play through injury. Like, just put all that to rest.
How do you think the team has responded, though? They seem very supportive, and I would say that starts at the top with Coach Thibodeau, that he really keeps those guys corralled in and supporting each other and supporting Derek on his decision, because I'm sure it's not easy, and as a competitor, you want to be out there playing and contributing.
Well, that's just it, and I did have a chance to talk to Luol Deng a little bit about it,
okay.
And he said, you know, our mentality is only the player knows. When you as a player, you're the only one that knows when you're really ready, and being ready means physically ready, but also mentally ready. And if you're not mentally ready, it might cause you to second guess it. Like you might be about to make a move and then you second guess, and that's when you could have a really bad injury. If you start to make a move, second guess, go to make a different move, then that's when your knee slides or your ankle slides or something happens and you are hurt even worse. And so they all respect that. They've all been hurt. They all know what he's going through. So I give him a lot of credit, because some teams would be like, well, we don't know why Derek isn't playing, but they've been very supportive, and you know, it's just tough to watch a player just as amazing as Derrick Rose is, to know that he is healthy and he's not playing. It's hard to watch that team knowing, come on, Derek, check into the game, make this more interesting, because they've been great. If Derrick Rose is healthy, not to mention Luol Deng, Kirk Hinrich, I think Miami has a problem on their hands.
Well, the good news is that he will be back next year, and he's still very young. How old is he?
I don't know, but he's very young, 23, 4.
Right.
He's got a lot, and that's the other thing. This guy has probably 15 years of elite basketball ahead of him. So we're worried about a couple months here and there, and in the grand scheme of things, let the guy get healthy and be Derrick Rose next season. The
other series that we definitely want you to weigh in on, talk about as far as the Pacers and the Knicks. What stands out in your mind when you've been following that and tracking it?
You always wonder, obviously there are a couple guys on the Knicks team that I thought they're really going to help Carmelo, because they won a championship here in Dallas a couple of years ago, Jason Kidd and Tyson Chandler. And even though our owner here told us that they were too old to really compete anymore and probably shouldn't spend any money keeping them around, they did have the second best record in the Eastern Conference this year, and Tyson Chandler's been pretty okay for them, as has Kidd. So, but those things, I think they've had a great impact on Carmelo, because he's learned to be an all-around player instead of that one-dimensional, just go score, don't worry about the defensive end. But, you know, with Indiana, you've got an outstanding front line. You know, Roy Hibbert, I don't know what was going on in his head for the first, 80 games of the season, but all of a sudden at the end of the season and now the playoffs, he has become, Roy Hibbert, max contract player, you know, which everybody was asking, well, he got the money, what's happening now? So he's gotten over whatever the mental block was there. And David West, probably one of the most underrated players in the league. You know, we got two guys, Mike Conley and David West, who have been outstanding in the playoffs. Nobody talks about them. Nobody mentions Mike Conley or David West in their top five, whatever.
Yes.
And yet, if I'm going to battle and I can have any power forward in the league, not named Dirk, I'm probably taking David West, because offensively, defensively, in the locker room, he's the toughness guy. He's brought so much to that team. He was the missing piece of their culture. In fact, Frank Vogel told me David West is our culture. That's the impact he's had on that team. And that front court, you know, combined with Paul George's just extreme makeover, you know, Danny Granger's injury created that opportunity. Paul really struggled in October and November, and then he just flourished. Obviously an all-star now. That's the story of Indiana. They've put the pieces in place, and they came together at the right time, and they look good.
So, Bill, who do you see in the finals this year?
As much as I would like to say something else, I think Miami is the Eastern team, though, again, I think Indiana has the tools to make it tough on them. And it wouldn't shock me if Indiana won the series, but my guess is Miami, because they're so deep. Even with Dwayne Wade injured, they've got so many, I'm assuming he's injured, they've got so many pieces that come off the bench. They're so deep. LeBron's having an amazing year. Chris Bosh creates problems at center, though he won't against Indiana. And then I'm guessing if San Antonio can stay healthy, assuming they don't lose Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, or Tim Duncan, it's going to be really tough for Memphis, assuming it's Memphis, to get past them. Because again, you've got the clock ticking mentality. You've got the veteran savvy. You've got, you know, guys that Manu Ginobili is like Mr. Intangible. Whenever the game's on the line and he has the ball, you just know whatever's about to happen, it's going to be amazing. They're going to win. So I think that gives San Antonio an edge, although I do like if Memphis had one more scorer off the bench, if they had, say, O.J. Mayo, if they had someone else bringing something off the bench, and not, you know, I'm not sold that Jared Bayless is like that force that's going to change everything. They need their Jason Terry. They need that one guy that's going to come in and give them a pickup, give them a three, give them something that they right when they need it the most. And not having that, I think the Spurs are going to take them out of their game enough that it's going to be awfully hard for Memphis to score enough points, just to score enough points to win that series.
I think another quick question I want to talk about, you know, we've highlighted so many of the wonderful players that are part of these series that have been a part of this league all season long, but it really is a league that's comprised of just some amazing coaches. We were just talking about, you know, George Karl, Coach of the Year in the NBA, Mark Jackson, Tom Thibodeau has been fabulous, Lionel Hollins, and also I think the job that Rick Carlisle did here with the Dallas Mavericks. It was not easy getting his team back to 500. We're very fortunate as fans of the game right now to see some of the all-time best.
Well, we really are, and you're right. I mean, Rick Carlisle was handed a team that all one-year contracts, probably a playoff team if Dirk doesn't need that knee procedure. So then you lose Dirk for 2 months, a little more than 2 months, and you know, and then it took him a month really to be Dirk again.
That was his training camp, yeah.
Yeah, it really was. And by the time Dirk was healthy, it was just that much too late. But Rick is. You see the adjustments that he makes. You see the things, and when you talk to the players about what he asks them to do, the way, like Sean Marion's a great example. He told Sean, you can be much more effective in the paint. And Sean was like, I'm not a paint, I'm a shoot threes, I'm fast break, and okay, that's what you were, but that's not what you are anymore. And so for you to continue to be an effective player, you're going to have to make an adjustment. And here's what it is. And he showed him some things, and Matrix started working on those things, and they worked, and he went, wow. And so then he worked harder, and now you see him in the paint all the time. I don't particularly like that little flip shot. I'm always like, just go ahead and dunk it. Just get.
As long as it goes
in,
right?
But it goes in a lot. So, you know, but that's a Rick Carlisle thing. He helps guys find new players within themselves, new things that they could do that they've never done before. And he's got a coaching staff that's great. And I love that Caleb Canales is now on the coaching staff.
Yes.
But he's got a coaching staff that really helps bring that out as well.